Hi, my name is Diana Shull and I'm the Social Work Liaison Librarian here at UW-Whitewater. If you have any questions about social work research, even after watching this tutorial, feel free to contact me. In addition to the LibGuide address, email is the best way to get in contact with me. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about doing research in library databases for social work. And what's the point of social work research, really? Well, the point is to answer questions and solve problems. And you want to answer questions and solve problems using evidence, research-based evidence. And you do that through finding research articles in library databases. So when we talk about doing research, we really want to get to these quality, scholarly, peer-reviewed articles. And the best way to do that is to think about your problem and break it down into a series of researchable concepts. So the example that we're going to use today is I want to know the effects of stress on family caregivers of older adults. And the problem I want to solve is I want to reduce that stress on family caregivers. So how do I go about looking in library databases for evidence that shows me not only different ways to reduce stress on family caregivers, but the best way, the best intervention to reduce stress on family caregivers? The first thing that you're really going to do is transform your problem, whatever it is, into a series of researchable questions. Because a problem can give you some concepts, but you really want to answer certain questions in your research. So you need to transform your statement of the problem into a series of questions that you want to answer through your research. So to use our example, the first one is you want to know, is stress on family caregivers a problem at all? What does it look like? Do most family caregivers of older adults experience stress? Or is this something that only happens to a few family caregivers? Second problem is, who are these family caregivers of older adults? Are they, children? Are they brothers or sisters? Are they spouses? What the relationship is there is important. And also, who are they? Where do they live? How many of them are there? Are there more of them in the cities or more in the rural areas? All these things would inform the way that you would approach this problem. Another question you want to answer is, what are some of the ways people have tried to reduce the stress? And this is a question that you can answer probably given your social work knowledge, the classes you've taken and so forth. You don't necessarily need to do library research to answer this question, but you definitely need to do library research to answer this question: what is the best intervention to reduce stress? So you might have an idea of what some good interventions are, but then you want to really look at the evidence, at these research studies, to help you determine which is the best intervention to reduce stress. And how can I test the effectiveness of this intervention? That's the last question you're going to answer. Once you've broken your topic down into a series of researchable questions, then you need to break these questions down even further into researchable concepts. So for our example, family caregivers, older adults, and stress are the main concepts. And let's see how we would transform these concepts into a list of keywords using Boolean operators like and or in order to input them into the databases. All right, so once you have your topic and you've broken it down into a series of researchable questions, it should be fairly obvious what the main concepts are in your topic. And from the main concepts is how we're going to develop keywords, which you will use to search in the database. So for our example topic, which is the relieving stress on family caregivers of older adults, I'd have three main concepts within that topic, and that would be stress, family caregivers, and older adults. This is not the only words that you can use to talk about this topic though. And when you're searching in the databases, you need to come up with a series of synonyms as much as you can for your concepts so that you can make sure that you're exploring all the possibilities, the way that researchers would talk about these concepts. So for example, a synonym for stress might be burden. A synonym for family caregivers. Now, you might have concepts that don't really have synonyms, and family caregivers is one of those that you might not have some synonyms for. Older adults, there would be synonyms there. So we could do elderly, the aged. You don't have to go as far as that, but most likely you'll have synonyms for most of your concepts. Now, from here, this is how we develop our search strategy. Between concepts, you are going to join the concepts with ands. So you want to investigate articles that contain information about stress and family caregivers and older adults, not stress family caregivers of children with cancer, for example. So you're going to use and between the concepts. Within the concepts, for your synonyms, you are going to use ors, because it doesn't matter if the article talks about older adults or the elderly. So this is how, on your worksheet, you would develop your series of synonyms and then your series of keywords and concepts. Okay, now that we have determined your researchable concepts, we've brainstormed some keywords, some synonyms for our concepts, and we've linked them together, our main concepts together by and our synonyms together with or, you now need to think a little bit about what kinds of sources you need. And I gave you a clue earlier in this tutorial. You need scholarly, peer-reviewed articles. And primarily, you need primary sources. These are empirical studies, they're research studies. They can also be population studies that do surveys. And for example, in our topic, it might be surveys of family caregivers of older adults and to see how many of them experience stress. Secondary sources like literature reviews or meta-analyses are not things that you can use for one of your main sources in this research paper, but they can lead you to really great primary empirical research articles. All right, so now that we know what keywords and concepts you are going to search, what kinds of information you need, and you've thought more about your research topic by breaking it down into a series of questions. Now we can get into the database, PsycInfo, which you'll access from library.uww.edu. So now I'll show you how to do that. All right, so in this part of this session, we're going to look at using the database PsycInfo to look at some of your keywords and figure out what peer-reviewed empirical articles there are. All right, so from the library homepage, which is library.uww.edu, you will click on Articles/Databases. From there, click on the P for PsycInfo and scroll down. Click on PsycInfo and you'll be sent to the advanced search. If you're off campus or using a laptop on campus, you will most likely be sent through our login server, which you'll put in your NetID and password, and so then you'll be, your computer will act as if it's on campus. Okay, so if I want to know the effects of stress on family caregivers of older adults, and I want to reduce the stress on caregivers, first, we talked about the different kinds of searches we do, and the first search is when we need to know more about the problem. So we need to know more about the population of family caregivers of older adults. So let's start putting in our keywords. So if I have family caregivers, but in this instance, I am going to do caregiver asterisk, and that means that
asterisk is a truncation symbol, so it will find caregiver or caregivers there. That was one of our sets of keywords. And then we wanted to find the older adults. So here we do older adult asterisk. And remember, I'm also using the quotation marks to mark them together as a phrase. So older adult or elder asterisk. And since elder, elders, or elderly is just one word, I do not need quotation marks around that to keep that together. It's just more than a one-word phrase. You need quotation marks to keep it together. But remember, I need to find out more about the population. So I'm going to do population or graphics, like that. I'm going to limit to peer review, and for publication dates, I'm going to do after this date, and I'll just do, 10 years. So 2, 7, why not? Or if you don't have a date range, you don't have to do that. But in the last 10 years, here we go. Okay, now I'm going to click search. Okay, so I have 119 results for this search. That means I'm probably doing well with a balance between too broad and too narrow, even though I know I'm probably not going to look at all 119 things. It's pretty good. Let's see, adapting the family management style framework for families caring for older adults with dementia. That seems like it could be useful if I want to look more at it. I will click the title, and I can read the abstract. If ProQuest asks you to fill out feedback, you can or don't have to, depending on what you want to do. All right, so this article concludes with a discussion of how understanding how families manage care of an older adult with dementia informs assessment for management styles and tailoring interventions specific to family, caregiver, and older adult needs. So maybe this article would provide information about what the needs are of the caregivers, and so maybe stress and their burden is part of their needs. So this could be useful to talk about it. If you do want it, we can click the Find It here. If you see the purple Find It button, click that, and then we'll be sent to another screen, and this, you have to do a little reading, but it's okay. So it says full text available, and it says full text available at Sage Premier 2016. So I'm going to click that link, which will then get me over into another database where I actually can read the whole article. So again, we see the abstract. If I want the PDF, I click on here, and here's my PDF. So there we go. If I want to go back to my search results, I come back here. Let's find something else. Overviews of evidence-based practice with older adults and their families. That could be useful. Cross-survey differences in national estimates of numbers of caregivers of disabled older adults. While this is a small subset of older adults, or maybe not so small, we could look at that article for more information about just raw numbers, etc. Let's see here. Family caregivers of older adults, just a great basic article on this. So if we want to do that, we can click on here. Again, we'll get the abstract. Face many obstacles, increased risk for burden, stress, depression. Great. An overview of caring, a summary of evidence-based psychosocial interventions for family caregivers of older adults, recommendations for future interventions. Wonderful. This might help us with our second point. our second question, and will probably come up in our second search. So let's go back to our results. So this way we can find more about the population. And now let's do add to our search. We can modify our search, and this way we'll get more about this, the stress and burden aspect. So we can do stress or burden, and we can also add a row and do intervention, asterisk, if we want to particularly focus on interventions. You can click there. Notice because we've added a lot more, we've added another whole category of intervention, and we changed the demographics to stress or burden. We have fewer results, but that's to still be expected. Let's see. Transitions in caregiving, evaluating a person-centered approach to supporting family caregivers in the community. That could be a good one. Let's see. Stressors in caregivers, depression, great. Familial caregivers of older adults, remember this is the one we looked at in the other search, but because all the keywords are still there, it's going to come up in this search too. Assessment of the efficacy of a stress management program for informal caregivers of dependent older adults. Again, great. Assessment of the efficacy. This is evidence-based interventions. Excellent. Excellent. So all of these are helping us ask the second part of that question is what interventions are the best way to reduce stress in family caregivers. Okay, so now you can see over here the date ranges, and you can also go down on the methodology, and so you can pick up a couple things. The empirical studies are going to be those ones that will show you, test out the evidence-based interventions. Literature reviews are going to review, whole ideas of this, and they will point you to some more primary sources, which are those articles talking about evidence-based, performing some sort of experiment to assess evidence-based interventions. So the methodology, you can poke around in there as well. But that's how you basically use PsycInfo. So do not be afraid of the purple Find It buttons. You can click them, and then you can see that we're going to have full text available. Again, just click that link, and here's the article. The PDF is there. So even though we might not have the article right here in PsycInfo, the purple Find It buttons will get you to the articles. Here's an example of one that is right in PsycInfo. So then you would just click here to get the full text. Now, if you do find a purple Find It button that does not get you to the full text right away, you can still order it through interlibrary loan, and that will be there'll be a link there for you to do that. And if you have any questions about how to order things from interlibrary loan, please ask me. Again, you can email me, shull.d@uww.edu. All right, so this is just an example of how to use PsycInfo to do your social work research.
Thanks for watching How to Do Social Work Research. If you need more information, please feel free to email me at the email address here, or you can refresh yourself at any time with the information here by going to libguides.uww.edu/socialwork. And lots of the information contained in this tutorial is also there at the guide. All right, thanks for watching, and good luck with your research.